Hello, my name is Lloyd Chapman, and I'm president and founder of the American Small Business League. You may be aware of this, but current federal law requires that a minimum of 23% of all government contracts go to small businesses. That makes sense to me. Based upon the latest data from the U.S. Census Bureau, we know that small businesses create over 90% of the net new jobs. They employ over half of the private sector workforce. They're responsible for over half of the gross domestic product. And over 90% of all U.S. exporters are small businesses. So a federal law that requires that a minimum of 23% of our tax dollars be spent with these small businesses where most Americans work is a great idea. I view that program as the most efficient, effective economic stimulus program in U.S. history. It was established by the Small Business Act of 1951. Here's the problem. In 1990, the Pentagon adopted the Comprehensive Subcontracting Plan Test Program, which essentially repealed that 23% small business contracting goal for the Pentagon and its prime contractors. About 70% of acquisitions by the federal government take place at the Pentagon. So this program, we think, has cost the middle class and small businesses over $1 trillion in the last 25 years, and possibly twice that much. So prior to this program, to the Comprehensive Subcontracting Test Program taking effect in 1990, government prime contractors had to submit a small business subcontracting plan that you and I and anyone else could take a look at. They also had to submit quarterly reports and annual reports that showed if they were complying with their small business goals. This test program eliminated that and eliminated all transparency. So today, you and I cannot see any information on prime contractors. It's secret. Now, prior to the test program, there was a law called liquidated damages. And any Pentagon prime contractor that failed to hit their small business goal could face liquidated damages. The law actually said that if a contractor failed to hit their small business goal, they would pay liquidated damages in the amount of the deficiency. What that meant is, if you had a $10 million small business goal and you just did 5, you had to give 5 back to the government, because the government puts that money into the contract for the contractors to dole out to small businesses and subcontract to small businesses. So the Comprehensive Subcontract Plan Test Program eliminated the liquidated damages. Now remember, this program was developed as a test to see if making these changes would increase subcontracting opportunities for small businesses. Now let's see if we can figure this out. What do you think happened when these Pentagon prime contractors no longer had to submit documents that you and I could see? They removed all transparency, and they removed any penalties for noncompliance. What do you think happened? You think opportunities for small businesses increased? Obviously not. The Pentagon has been unable to provide any documents in a quarter of a century that this program has achieved its goals. Let's look at the language and what's called the chairman's mark of the 2015 National Defense Authorization Bill, Section 811, that renews the program into its 28th year of testing. It says this: however, after nearly 24 years since the original authorization of the program, the test program has yet to provide evidence that it meets the original stated goal of the program. So in the law here, they've acknowledged that there's no evidence this program works. In 2004, the General Accounting Office investigated the Comprehensive Subcontracting Plan Test Program, and here's what they said. Although the test program was started more than 12 years ago, DoD has yet to establish metrics to evaluate the program's results and effectiveness. So the Government Accountability Office said 10 years ago that the Pentagon didn't even have a system to determine if this program is working or not. Well, it's no surprise they didn't do that, because clearly there would be no evidence this program worked. It would be insane to think that eliminating all transparency for the American people and any penalties for prime contractors to not hit their small business goal is going to somehow increase opportunities for small businesses. This was a huge loophole for Pentagon prime contractors to allow them to violate federal law that requires that a minimum of 23% of all government contracts go to small businesses. We think this program needs to end. Here's another insane part about this. What's a reasonable time frame in your mind to test whether this would work and, again, increase subcontracting opportunities for small businesses? What's a reasonable time frame to test this? Congress wants to renew it into its 28th year of testing. I think that's insane. I think it's insane that it's lasted 25 years. So this is a loophole that's designed to allow the Pentagon and its prime contractors to cheat small businesses, the middle class, where most Americans work, where over 90% of the jobs are created. I think it needs to end now. So the American Small Business League has been contacting chambers of commerce across the country and asking you to contact your senators, your congressmen, and call the White House and let them know you do not want the comprehensive subcontracting plan test program to be renewed. It needs to be eliminated. And we need to go back to the way programs were prior to this program, where prime contractors had to submit subcontracting plans and subcontracting reports that you and I could see to make sure they were actually complying with the law and that they faced penalties for not complying with the law. I think that makes sense. So we hope that you agree with us that this doesn't make sense. And I wrote a blog about a couple of days ago, and I said, what would you think if your local school district said, we have a program we're going to test to try to improve scholastic scores. We're going to eliminate tests for the children, eliminate report cards, and no penalties for children that don't show up for class. And then we're going to test that for 25 years to see if that improves scholastic scores. You would think they were insane. Well, that's what Congress is doing at this program. So please help us to kill the comprehensive subcontracting plan test program once and for all, and stop allowing the Pentagon as prime contractors to cheat the middle class and small businesses. I'm Lloyd Chapman. Thank you very much.